Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. I'm Rosebud Reads, and welcome to my book garden. Welcome also to book one, part 7 of Peerless. We are actually finishing book one tonight, which is very exciting. But yeah, this is a very chill stream, which means I will be talking to my lovely book garden. I'll be talking to myself, and I will be talking to the book. If that's not really your flavor, that is completely okay. It isn't everyone's. But maybe stick around, see what's up. You might enjoy it. I mean, you arrived at part 7, so means you had some interest. If it still isn't, all good. Um, I am not sponsored. I do not make anything from doing this. The only thing I own is the physical copy in front of me and my time, and sometimes not even that. Oftentimes, not even that. Hello, Annika. Welcome. How are you doing tonight? I love it when people chat with me while I'm reading, so feel free to post any comments in the lovely book garden. And I will try to get to you an answer. I'm usually very quick on the uptake when people comment. And I enjoy it. Please no spoilers though. It makes it a little less fun. Trying to think of what else. This is an adult book. So if you are not 17 plus or 18 plus, I'm not quite sure how you found me. But yeah. Oh goodness, Annika, you're still sick? And hello, Mars Rover. How are you doing tonight? Hopefully not sick. I hope that goes away. I mean, I hope you have some time to rest this weekend and kick that, because you've been sick for a while. Goodness. Well, hang in there. Let's see, am I forgetting anything? I could do the injustice counter, I guess. So we count injustices and one justice, because there's quite a bit of it in this book. So we have how many? 5, 10, 15 injustices to service workers. We have one justice to service workers, still one. Injustice to animals is at 2. Injustice to innocence is also at 2. And injustice solely to Pei Jingzi is at 8. Oh, everything hurts. Oh, Annika. I'm sorry. That's no fun. Trying to think of if anything is new in my life. Oh, yes. Yes, something is. So I know I mentioned last time how the Other Worlds books depend on the bookkeeper. Had I was interested in it. It has eaten my life. I am already 100 pages from the end of book 1, and I started it yesterday. I also finished Missville 2. Oh yeah, take care of yourself, Annika. Okay, definitely. Thank you for even just popping in and saying hey, and I will say hello again once you pop back in, Momars Rover. No worries. But yeah, Missville 2 was amazing. It's definitely getting darker. I kind of am starting to see what they mean about that. I mean, the first one was definitely had some very dark and disturbing themes. No, it's really well written. It's very interesting. It had some twists and turns I was not expecting. Definitely recommend it. Just know there is some triggering things in there. So if you have triggers, make sure to look up what's up before reading it. Yeah, Song Ching Shi is definitely a character. Yes. For the bean counter, I am so excited. I've watched all the episodes a couple times on Crunchyroll. I'm excited for next Tuesday because that'll be the next episode, and we ended on a cliffhanger, which I should be used to by now. But yeah, I have most of the manga books, but again, they still have one more to release for the manga. So I still don't know what happens at the end. So we are going to be reading, probably over this weekend, the rest of the Bean Counter books, just so I can know how it ends. Depending on how people feel about it, maybe that'll be one of the series we read. It's a very quick series. No, it was a good episode. You'll enjoy it, Annika. But yeah, I know we've done a lot of the ancient heavy Danmes, but I'm curious. Just maybe I'll post a poll about it sometime later about doing just kind of one of the lighter, literally light novels. Not sure if it quite counts as a Danme. It's like Danme adjacent. Um, it's definitely a BL. But I don't know. It's not a wuxia, that's for sure. But yeah, just something kind of like, cause we have done some rather heavy books. So just something a little fun. It probably would be around spring because I think Peerless will probably be about another 3.5 months. So that'll be like summer, springish time. So maybe it could be fun. Yeah, you think it'd be fun, Annika? Yeah, I'll probably make a post. I mean, I greatly enjoyed kind of the lightheartedness from Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. So yeah, something to think on. I mean, we definitely are spoiled for choice with all the Danmes coming out. So, but anyway, let's go ahead and just get started kind of early. I know I usually chatter a bit more, but don't really have anything to add. I mean, I painted my nails frantically before the stream started because my other ones were chipping, so sparkles. Past that, I don't have anything new. So let's get started. Thank you, Annika. I hope I don't mess them up too much turning pages, but we shall see. You're starting at 8:15. Okay, so last time we found out that the lady Lee or Lou, Lady Lou, had been murdered, not just drowned. And Chubuchu figured this out and is kind of also at the same time causing trouble for the causing trouble for the Bureau because he keeps doing slightly outrageous things and saying like, you can't touch us, I'm from the Jijiang Bureau, and such. So paging Z kind of, there's a little bit of the injustice going on there with things such as that. But Su Xing was Lady Lu's cousin, but also the person she was originally engaged to. And then her father found like a better match, a more politically advantageous match. and was pushing her to take that match. And she said no. And then, shocker, she turned up in the pond. And originally it was thought to be an accident, and we're now finding out it wasn't. And we found out there was a lot more to Su Xing's paintings. AKA, he had a thing for Lady Lu's maid, who had her name changed to Lotus. And that's kind of where we are. I'm going to read a little bit past there. Watch what you say, Taoist Master Chu, Su Xing said coldly. He Niang likes lotuses because her name is He Niang. What does that have to do with me? Is that so? Chu Buchu sneered, then turned to the steward and Madame Li. Was her name He Niang when she entered the manor? Madame Li shook her head. She paid a great deal of attention to the maids who served her daughter. The whole sticking his fingers in her mouth seemed kind of like a Dr. House move. Like, sure, there's a reason, but he also kind of rage baited. He's also kind of rage baiting Oh, he's totally rage baiting them. He's purposely smearing the Jijiang Bureau's name through the mud right now. On purpose. And rage baiting them. Madame Li shook her head. She paid a great deal of attention to the maids who served her daughter. She used to be called Shi Niang because she was the 10th child in her family. They were poor, and her parents couldn't afford to raise her. We purchased her at the age of 6, and 2 years ago, Dan Yang personally changed her name to He Niang. Chu Buchu looked at Su Xing. 2 years ago, you would already have been living at this manor. So what if I was? Said Su Xing. Do you know why I put my fingers into Lady Lu's mouth just now? She'd eaten some green bean pastries that night, and the residue remains in her mouth. If she'd drowned, water would have poured into her mouth and nose, and these traces would have been washed away. If there was no sediment from the water in her mouth, then the leftover bean paste remained. This proves she was placed in the water after her death when she was no longer breathing. That's why the water couldn't enter. Lu Ti was stunned. He began struggling fiercely, and at Chu Buchu's signal, Zhang Sun let him go. Lu Ti wobbled and stumbled forward to look down into the coffin. Chu Buchu looked at Su Xing and said, The night Feng Xiao won the jade at the auction, many experts visited Chushan Manor. The one in black was you, was it not? I see Taoist Master Chu wishes to frame me, said Su Xing coldly. You're trying to pin everything on me. You were the one who sent the jade to Linlang Pavilion, said Chu Buchu. You did it to test everyone's reactions and lure out your accomplice. That's why you acted differently than the others. You didn't come to steal the jade. You were there to hide and observe. Once you confirmed your accomplice wasn't present, you left. Did you know how I recognized you? Because that night, the person in black stood with his right wrist in his left hand, just as you do now. You can disguise and conceal your face, but your body tells the truth. Su Xing remained unmoved. That's because I spend too much time painting and writing, he said evenly. I overtax my wrist, so sometimes it's sore. Many scholars experience this issue. If you don't believe me, find another scholar and examine them. Then you'll see. At that moment, Zhang Sun attacked him from behind with a powerful strike. He put 8/10 of his full strength into the blow, enough to kill Su Xing where he stood. Su Xing turned his head slightly aside, but remained still as Zhang Sun's blow came closer and closer. At the last second, Zhang Sun withdrew his palm and stepped back. Su Xing knew that he'd made the right call. They'd only wanted to test him. But Chu Buchu wasn't going to let him off so easily. Why pretend? The exact reaction you just tried to avoid has demonstrated you're a martial artist, and a powerful one at that. Su Xing scoffed. If all you want to do is to add to my charges, why should I stand here and listen to your slander? I'm leaving! He flicked his sleeves and turned to go. In a flash, Qiao Xian's sword glare swept towards his back, brimming with the murderous force of 1,000 troops crushing their enemies. This killing intent was naked, unlike Zhang Sun Bodhi's probing blow. At last, Su Xing could no longer feign ignorance. He stepped aside to evade. That one sidestep removed all doubt. This man was a martial artist. Exposed, he no longer hesitated. He reached for his waist, and a rippling, glinting blade appeared in his hand. He turned and sped towards Qiao Xian, but halfway across he made a sharp turn and grabbed Lu Ti instead. In an instant, Lu Ti became a hostage, Su Xing's whip sword coiling around his neck. Stay back, or I kill him! Chubuchu shook his head. What's the use in taking him hostage? When the Jijian Bureau wishes to settle something, we won't stop for anyone. Pei Jingzi was at a loss for words. Deputy Bureau Chief, this man is throwing your authority around and directing all blame to the Jijian Bureau, yet you still want his help? Doesn't the Jijian Bureau have enough enemies already? So there's the rage baiting again. He's clearly doing that on purpose to act recklessly. All right. Chapter 34. Yeah, he's definitely having way too much fun with this. You are correct, Annika. Chapter 34. Lu Ti had been taken hostage, and his life now hung by a thread. Yet he showed no fear. Rather, upon his face was written disbelief, shock, and rage. Sun Lang, let go of your uncle, Madame Li sobbed. You bastard! When have your aunt or I ever wronged you? How could you kill Dan Yang? Lu Ti was trembling all over, paying no heed to the whip sword slowly tightening around his neck. Blood dripped down the blade and over his skin. Madame Li's terror overwhelmed her. Her vision went dark, and she crumpled limply to the floor. I'm sorry. You did treat me well, but I haven't forgotten my hometown and family. I can't become the real Su Xing. Shocker. It was not actually Su Xing. Everyone was shocked, including the group with Chubuchu. If you're not Su Xing, then who are you? Asked Pei Jingzi. Su Xing was silent. Lu Ti was filled with anguish and sorrow. Even if you aren't Su Xing, you've been part of the Li family for many years. I have no sons and have always treated you as my own child. Tan Yang was devoted to you. She never wavered. The proposed marriage with the Wang family of Tai Yuan was my own fixation. It had nothing to do with Dan Yang. If you were dissatisfied, why not kill me instead? Why kill Dan Yang? Have you no conscience? Su Xing sighed. You misunderstand. I didn't kill Dan Yang because of the marriage. If you wish to blame someone for Dan Yang's death, blame her for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's why she had to die. Did she discover you were a Gogieron? Chubuchu cut in. Or did she discover you killed the Cotonese envoy and stole the Jade of Heaven Lake? Su Xing narrowed his eyes and looked at Chubuchu. The Jijian Bureau deserves its reputation. I thought this was well concealed and I could escape without issue. I never imagined simply killing Lu Yuniang would cause so much trouble. Chubuchu smirked. You think the Jijian Bureau has anyone as talented and resourceful as me? I'm from the Shuo Yue Bureau. Remember that. The characters Shuo, Yue together make Su. Don't mistake one enemy for another, lest you find yourself dead without knowing who killed you. Pei Jingzi stared. Now he finally understood. Chubuchu used the Jijian Bureau's name when he was offending his enemies, and the Shuyue Bureau's name when he was intimidating them and burnishing his reputation. Must you debate our Jijian Bureau? What right do you debase our Jijian Bureau? What right do you have to make the Shuyue Bureau sound superior? A crowd of complaints stampeded through Pei Jingzi's heart, but now was not the time to speak them aloud. All he could do was wait till this was all over so he could run and tattle to Feng Xiao. Of everyone present, only Pei Jingzi had attention to spare for these complex, agitated thoughts swirling in his heart. The rest of the hall's focus was drawn to the conversation between Shu Xing and Chu Wuchu. Lu Ti was aghast. He shook like a leaf. You're Gogieron? Then what happened to the real Su Xing? He died long ago, Su Xing said coolly. 6 years ago, there was a plague in Su Xing's hometown. All 5 members of his family died. I happened to be passing through and took on his identity. I pretended I had a narrow escape and came to the Liu family for shelter. Lu Ting was panting. Why? Why choose the Liu family? The Liu family clan has no connection to Gogiero. Whether it's the son-in-law of the Liu family or Su Xing, to me it's just a shell. Wherever they need me, that's where I go. Whoever they need me to be, that's who I become. Who's they? Asked Pei Jingzi. Su Xing ignored him and continued. After I settled down with the Liu family, they made no attempt to contact me. I originally planned to marry Yu Niang and become Su Xing in truth. That would have been rather nice. Unfortunately, when news came that Khotan wished to meet with the Emperor of Su, they claimed me again. So you see, I was unable to stay out of the matter. But what does this have to do with your murder of Lu Yu Niang? Pei Jingzi asked. She was a girl who lived in ladies' chambers. She had nothing to do with your schemes and plotting. I also wish to know, Lu Ti wailed. Su Xing, whether or not that's really your name, you never suffered any injustice at the hands of the Liu family. Your aunt was afraid the servants in the family would look down on you, so she specifically instructed them to treat you as they would treat Yu Niang. The way Yu Niang regarded you was even more. Why? Why? Does this need to be asked? Chubuchu said coldly. Lu Yuniang has nothing to do with the Khotanese envoy, but she must have seen something she shouldn't. Su Xing was forced to silence the witness. That's right, said Su Xing. That day, when Yu Niang left her father's, she rushed right over to find me. But I happened to be out. Normally, she's very well mannered. This was the first time she entered my study without permission. People like you are meticulous and careful, otherwise you wouldn't be able to conceal yourself for so many years. Even if Lu Yu Niang did enter the study, what could she possibly have seen that she shouldn't have? I have a book filled with codes. I use those codes to decipher messages sent by my accomplices. The book itself is unremarkable. Normally, no one would bother flipping through it. Unfortunately, of all the books on the bookshelf, that was the one she took out to read. Su Xing closed his eyes. He didn't have to tell them all this. He could simply remain silent. Perhaps Chubuchu's group would never have found out what Lu Yu Niang discovered that ended her life. And yet he'd spilled the entire story. It was clear that the lovely, ill-fated Lu Yu Niang wasn't nothing to him. The dead could never return. Only in this way could he soothe the tiny sliver of guilt pricking his heart. When I returned, I noted my cousin's flustered expression in the way she stumbled over her words. I went to find the book and saw signs that it had been read. My cousin was sharp. She knew she'd connected the dots, but I hadn't obtained the jade. I couldn't afford to be exposed. Yu Niang had to die. He heaved a weary sigh. Luti's face streamed with tears. They were tears of rage. The tears of a father powerless before the villain who'd killed his beloved daughter. Yunye loved you with all her heart. She refused a marriage into the Wang family of Tai Yuan. Even if she discovered something, she would never betray you. Why couldn't you let her live? I couldn't take the risk. If my identity was exposed and the mission failed, death awaits my family in Goguryeo. I can only repay Yu Niang's love for me in the next life. Hello. Would you like to be called Galactic Drifter or just Drifter? Oh, thank you. I enjoy it. We only just started, so you came in at a good time. Basically we're finding out the whys of why Galactic. All right. Hello, Galactic. Welcome. We're finding out why Lu Yuniang was murdered. And basically it's because she found out that Su Xing was not actually Su Xing. So I couldn't take the risk. If my identity was exposed and the mission failed, death awaits my family in Goguryeo. I can only repay Yu Niang's love for me in the next life. Su Xing looked at Chubuchu. You must also know by now that the real Jade of Heaven Lake isn't on me. I can offer you Lu Ti's life and some valuable information. Would you be willing to let me go in exchange? Pei Jingzi sniffed contemptuously. You mean to give up your accomplice? She's been seriously injured, and we're combing the city for her as we speak. She'll be caught any minute. Su Xing shook his head. Only I know where she'll be hiding. You won't find her even if you search for 3 days and 3 nights. And don't forget, the jade is in her hands. She's capable. She likely already discovered the jade's secret, that it can be used to enhance martial arts. Even healing internal injuries might be possible with the help of the jade. Once she recuperates and sneaks out of the city, good luck catching her. As he spoke, his gaze never left Chubuchu. He clearly knew who was in charge here. Very well, said Chubuchu. If your information is accurate, I will drop the charges against you for the murder of Lu Yu Niang. You needn't release Lu Ti now if you don't trust me. You can release him once we've caught your accomplice. Lu Ti hissed and spit. Absolutely not! Even if he drops the charges, I won't let you go. I'll kill you. Su Xing paid him no heed. He tapped the acupoint that would render Lu Ti mute, and Lu Ti fell silent. I need a guarantee. Something strong enough to reassure me, Su Xing said to Chubuchu. Chubuchu addressed Zhang Sun Bodhi. Head to Feng Xiao's place to help out. No need to come back for now. I'll find you if I need you. Zhang Sun nodded. He asked no questions, but turned and left. Su Xing watched Zhang Sun disappear and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The one person on the scene he feared was Zhang Sun Bodhi. Su Xing was an elite martial artist himself. With Zhang Sun gone, he considered no one else here his match. He was no longer afraid. Chubuchu thrust a hand out towards Pei Jingzi. Give it here. Pei Jingzi looked back at him, flummoxed. Impatiently, Chubuchu said, Your deputy chief asked me to help, so he must have given you some kind of certificate or seal. I need it now, so give it here. Pei Jingzi couldn't help saying, But your lordship is from the Shuo. His voice died out as Chubuchu nailed him with a sinister glare. With great reluctance, he reached into his lapels and produced a small seal, then tossed it to Chubuchu. Chubuchu looked down at the seal, then threw it in turn to Su Xing. This is the seal of the Jijian Bureau's deputy chief. Any gate within Great Su's borders will open to you with this seal. Though leaving this place means leaving the country, with this certification in hand, you'll feel some measure of reassurance, no? Su Xing's true background was a tightly kept secret, but his 6-year stay with the Liu family had influenced him. He'd seen no few treasures, and the moment he weighed the seal in his hand, he knew Chu Buchu was telling the truth. He tucked it into his lapels, then pulled Lu Ti towards the door, step by step. Each member of the Liu family looked upon him as their mortal enemy as they followed tightly after him, but Su Xing paid them no attention. Though Chu Buchu had no martial arts to speak of, to Su Xing's mind, the man was somehow a more present threat than either Qiao Xian or Pei Jingzi. It was the prick of his martial artist's intuition, inexplicable but unfailingly accurate. When Su Xing and Lu Ti were at a distance, Su Xing thought sufficient for his escape, he spoke. Qin Miao Yu can most often be found in 3 places in the city. The first 2 are Chunxiang House and Ronghe Building. The third is the small Qingshuan House in the east of the city. Upon its door hang banners with couplets that say, "Green willows flourish beneath the light, the red walls glow, refreshed and bright." Qiao Xian and Zhang Sun had previously located Qin Miaoyu in the vicinity of Chunxiang House, so the moment they heard this, they knew Su Xing wasn't lying. Su Xing took a deep breath, then leapt up onto the roof, taking Lu Ti with him. "I've said all I promised, so I'll be leaving now." He smiled. He wasn't particularly handsome, but the instant he was out of danger, he assumed a calm, steady aura. Seeing him like this, it made sense Lady Lu had fallen for him. It was her ill luck to have trusted the wrong person and lost her life. "I have one more question," said Chu Buchu. "Taoist Master Chu, now you're being greedy. I won't answer." "Since your name isn't Su Xing, how should I address you?" Su Xing was silent a spell. "Yin Zai Rong, as in a gentleman is made through his achievements, not his looks." "Better it should be a gentleman is made through his virtue, not looks," Qiao Xian sneered. "You know, when she fought with us, she chose to risk escape rather than reveal your whereabouts." She wasn't referring to Lady Lu, but to Qin Miaoyu. Su Xing was taken aback. The moment his focus slipped, a strong wind blew up from behind him. He made to dodge, but he was holding Lu Ti. There was no time. He had no choice but shove Lu Ti away, pushing off him to veer to the side. But the person behind him seemed to anticipate his move. They swept to the side after him. Su Xing was afraid Qiao Xian and the others would fall upon him at once. Unwilling to fight, he fled. To his surprise, the opponent's Qinggong was superb. He shot past Su Xing to block his escape. A blast from his opponent's palm whipped towards him. Su Xing brought up his sword to block. Their eyes met, and Su Xing saw a terribly handsome face. "Leaving in such a hurry, perhaps you will return my seal to me first," Feng Xiao said with a smile. "Oh boy, here he is." Right. Thank you, Galactic. 3415. "35. Su Xing had no interest in chatting with Feng Xiao, and even less in testing his abilities. Right then, his most important goal was to escape. Anything else could wait. He'd lain low in the Liu family for many years, but his skills hadn't declined in the least. On the contrary, he was better now than when he'd left Goguiero. Only death awaited him if he was caught. He ignored defense in favor of an all-out offensive, every strike a killing blow as he beat Feng Xiao back. Pei Jingzi tossed his longsword to Feng Xiao, who caught it without looking. He thrust it forward to meet the whip sword Su Xing was slashing towards him and twisted. The blades vibrated with the internal energy of their wielders. Su Xing's was slightly weaker. His wrist went numb as the whip sword shuddered and went flying, flung away by his opponent's blade. Seeing things going south, he turned and gathered his chi to escape. His figure was like a soaring crane, bold and graceful. Even Xiao Xian exclaimed in surprise. The foundations of his Qinggong are solid. That doesn't look like the Goguieron style. How do Goguierons approach Qinggong? Pei Jingzi asked. Xiao Xian's face may as well have been covered in a layer of frost. She made no reply. Yeah, he's not getting any answers out of her. She's like, you poisoned my master, my leader. Like, you ain't getting shit from me, buddy. Pei Jingzi's mouth twitched at the corner. He felt rather aggrieved. I didn't poison your chief, and I didn't drag him all over the place either. Just a subordinate following orders. Give me a break. Called it. It was Chu Chu who answered. The Goguieron and Fu Sang people are close, and their martial arts are similar. They emphasize stealth and cunning, hiding in the dark to seek a fatal strike or defeating the enemy with lightning speed. They rarely employ this kind of light and agile style. Among Goguieron, such Qinggong is usually practiced only by women. Did Xin Miao Yu teach it to him? Pei Jingzi guessed, yet he betrayed her too. Xiao Xian's mouth twisted with cold disdain. It was rare for her to hold her tongue, but Pei Jingzi didn't need her to speak to know her thoughts. All men in this world were callous creatures. He couldn't resist saying, they were originally allies, but Qin Miaoyu turned her back on Su Xing and stole the jade for herself. Now Su Xing has betrayed her in turn. They're merely two dogs biting at each other. Perhaps Qin Miaoyu is no paragon of virtue, Xiao Xian said coldly, but you only have to look at Lu Yu Niang to know what Su Xing is capable of. Compared to that, what's selling out Qin Miaoyu? Pei Jingzi instinctively glanced towards the coffin and clammed up. Within the space of this exchange, Su Xing's soaring figure had almost overleapt the bounds of Lu Manor. He was briefly surprised to find no one pursuing him. Then his vision blurred and agony tore through his shoulder. He collapsed to the ground. Even if he held on to his sword, brimming with power, it would have made no difference in his defeat. The instant he hit the ground, a hand sealed his acupoints. Su Xing stared up at Feng Xiao, then closed his eyes in frustration. Kill me then! I only asked that it to be quick. Oh, good night, Galactic. Thank you for stopping by. If you watch later, I hope you enjoy. The Seal. See you next time. Pei Jingzi understood. He came forward to search Su Xing's lapels for the seal he'd taken earlier, then presented it to Feng Xiao. Taoist Master Chu's words are my words, said Feng Xiao. If the information you provided allows us to find Qin Miaoyu, the Jijian Bureau will honor our promise and show you leniency. Su Xing raised his head in disbelief. He'd never expected Feng Xiao would keep his word. From the other side, Lu Ti rushed at him, ignoring his own bleeding neck as he slapped Su Xing hard across the face. Su Xing was caught off guard. His head retched to the side, his cheeks swelling instantly. Give me my daughter back, Lu Ting said through gritted teeth, his expression ferocious. He would have choked Su Xing to death on the spot if Pei Jingzi didn't reach out to pull him off. Get out of my way! See to Lady Lu's funeral first. The Jijian Bureau will take care of this man. Without waiting for a reply, Pei Jingzi struck Lu Ti on the back of the neck and knocked him unconscious. He gestured for the servants of the Lu family to take him inside. All right. I'm gonna say that that's probably another injustice to innocence, because literally, like this whole situation with Lu Yuniang and Lu Ti, like that's at least another tally. So that's 3 injustices to innocence. He gestured for the servants of the Lu family to take him back inside. Though the matter of Lady Lu was over, the case was not yet concluded. I've helped Deputy Chief Feng resolve things with the Lu family, and I've also helped you capture Su Xing. When will Deputy Chief Feng fulfill his promise to bring me Foer's head, I wonder? Chu Buchu didn't bother being polite. Feng Xiao slapped his forehead like he just remembered. I forgot to tell you. On my way over here, I happened to see Foer in the distance heading toward the manor where you live. If I remember correctly, the envoy sent by Appa Kagan is also there, right? Xiao Xian's face paled. Why didn't you say so earlier? Eyes wide and innocent, Feng Xiao said. You didn't ask me earlier. I was busy arresting Su Xing. I didn't have time to think. I only remembered just now. You should hurry. Maybe you can still make it. Chu Buchu glanced at Xiao Xian, who sped off without another word. Is this how Deputy Chief Feng fulfills his promises? Chu Buchu scoffed. Feng Xiao smiled brightly. I said I'd kill Foer. I didn't say when. Killing him now, killing him in the future, what difference does it make? Blame yourself for not being more specific. If you want to change the terms now, we'll have to renegotiate. State your conditions, said Chu Buchu. I want half the credit for the negotiations with Appa's envoy. Absolutely not, said Chu Buchu automatically. Then there's nothing to be done, Feng Xiao sighed regretfully. You heard it too. Chu Buchu is the one you want. Don't kill the wrong person this time. As the last words dropped from Feng Xiao's lips, a figure appeared on the rooftop above them. The newcomer jumped down, his saber slashing like the wind, straight for Chu Buchu. Zhang Sun Bod He was long gone, and Xiao Xian had just left to pursue Foer. Suddenly, there was no one to protect him. All he could hear was Feng Xiao coolly saying, This person is a disciple of Foer Songji. He's not a particularly skilled martial artist, but he's more than capable of killing you. The saber was coming straight at him. In a moment, he'd lose his head. Pei Jingzi's face paled in horror. He didn't have a heart of stone like Feng Xiao, yet there was no way he could dash over and rescue Chu Buchu in time. The only one who could save him was Feng Xiao. In the face of death, Chu Buchu yelled, I'll give you half the credit for the negotiations. Wouldn't it be better to agree earlier? Feng Xiao said with a smile. He flew as fast as his words. In an instant, he was at Chu Buchu's side. God, he's an ass. He is such an ass, and it's going to bite him in his ass so fast. Chu Buchu is not going to forget or forgive that. If not anytime soon, ever. That is going to be one of the argument points that they come back to. Of like, oh, I love you so much. It's like, oh, really? Is that why you, like, basically taunted me to be murdered so you could get credit? I see where I rate. Ay, ay, ay. He waved his sleeve, but made no other movement. Song Ji felt a powerful force surging towards him. He stumbled backward and fell. Pei Jingzi ran up and seized him immediately. Right? I can't wait to see that come back to bite him. I am anticipating it. Hi! You, just missed, Feng Xiao doing something that's going to come back to bite him in the ass, almost certainly later. Basically, asked for half credit, then when Chubuchu denied him, basically baited out one of the assassin's assistants that were going after Chubuchu, into coming to attack Chubuchu and was like, the only person that can save you is me. You sure about not giving me half credit? So Chubuchu finally was like, fine, half credit. So they caught him. Songji was Foer's youngest disciple. He'd become an apprentice later, and though he was the weakest of all of Foer's disciples, Foer loved him the most. When Foer came to the Central Plains to disrupt negotiations with Appa Kagan, he brought his youngest disciple with him. He'd intended Songji to gain some experience in the Central Plains, but had initially permitted him only to track Appa Kagan's envoy, thinking to keep him out of danger. But Songji was young, and he yearned to perform great feats. Though his Shifu had ordered him to keep back, when he heard Feng Xiao talking to Chubuchu, he'd leapt out without thinking. Who knew Feng Xiao would keep switching sides like this? One moment he stood coldly by, not caring a whit whether Chubuchu lived or died. The next, he'd swept in to save him. Songji gnashed his teeth in frustration, but he'd already exposed himself and lost his opportunity to capture Chubuchu. Instead, he'd ended up captured himself. Feng Xiao paid no heed to Songji. He laughed and said, "Ha ha ha! A gentleman's words are like swift horses. Chu-Chu, you're the esteemed leader of the Shu Yue Bureau. You must not go back on your words." The implication was clear. Two can play at this game. You cheat me, and I'll cheat you. We can drag each other down, and no one will come out the winner. I'm no gentleman, Chubuchu said, but I will honor my promises. However, you must escort the Buddha the entire journey west. If you help someone, you must finish what you start. Xiao Xian is no match for Foer, so you'll have to come back with me and kill him. Feng Xiao smiled. Actually, I lied. I didn't see Foer on the way here. If you want to find him, you should ask his disciple. His Shifu will definitely come looking now that we've caught him. Chubuchu eyed him. You cheated me several times over, so we'll call it even. Why don't we bury the hatchet and make peace? Said Feng Xiao. Chubuchu thought, the fuck we're even, but nodded agreeably. The two of them stared at each other, mouths curved in identical fake smiles. Pei Jingzi's lips twitched. This really is too much. We're done here, said Feng Xiao. I'm going to find Qin Miaoyu first. Chu-Chu, do you wish to come? I will be negotiating with Appa Kagan's envoy tonight. If Deputy Chief Feng is interested, he is welcome to come and listen. Feng Xiao was rather shocked to find Chubuchu so cooperative. I thought you'd try another scheme or two before letting me join, he said. Chubuchu sneered. Do I look like that kind of indecisive, sloppy person? Feng Xiao cupped his hands and smiled. Not at all. I was judging a gentleman's heart through a scoundrel's eyes. The truth about Lu Yuniang's death had been revealed, but for Lu Ti and his wife, it meant a Goguryeo had deceived them, living in their house for years under the name of their relative, and ultimately cost their precious daughter her life. They felt no more comfort now than they had when they'd believed Lu Yuniang had drowned herself. When Madame Li came to, she wailed and cried, undone by regret. But Lu Yuniang was already dead in her coffin. There was no way back. When she walked in the underworld, would Lu Yuniang rue that she'd misjudged that man so gravely? The irreversible passage of time was the most agonizing thing in the world. A broken mirror could never be made whole. Spilled water never recovered. Feng Xiao and Chu Bu Chu didn't linger. They left the Liu family to their grief. When they reached the gates, they made to go their separate ways. Chu Bu Chu suddenly paused in his step and turned to Feng Xiao. I just remembered something. It's related to you, but I don't know if I should tell you. Meng Xiao saw the affected concern etched on Chu Bu Chu's face, and a sense of foreboding rose in his heart. Then don't tell me. When I examined the corpse earlier, I put my hand in Lu Yuniang's mouth. Some of the green bean paste she'd eaten got on my hand, and I forgot to wash it after. I used that same hand to take your seal from Pei Jingzi. I remember that you love cleanliness. I can't tell you how sorry I am. Feng Xiao had no words. Pei Jingzi saw not a hint of guilt on Chu Bu Chu's face, but did observe that Feng Xiao's had turned rather green. Chu Bu Chu wasn't foolish enough to wait around for Feng Xiao to come to his senses and take revenge. He disappeared in a flash, moving with tremendous speed and agility. It was day and night from his manner previously, frail and plagued with illness, coughing every second step. Pei Jingzi peered at Feng Xiao's face and said cautiously, Sir, should we first go look for Qin Miao Yu or go back to bathe and change? Find her. Feng Xiao squeezed those two words out between gritted teeth. Pei Jingzi was certain Qin Miao Yu would soon be finding herself in deep misfortune. I mean, that's, what fell? Kind of funny, not gonna lie. All right, 5230. Chapter 36. Qin Miaoyu was Gogiron born and bred, and that wasn't her original name. In Goguryeo, everyone from the king to the aristocracy was familiar with the culture of the Central Plains. Qin Miaoyu had been adopted at a young age and taught various martial arts, as well as the art of seducing men. At the age of 12, she'd been given a mission. Travel to the Central Plains, thousands of miles away, disguise herself as a local, and bury herself until she received her next task. Since the Qin Han dynasties, Goguryeo had been a vassal for the powerful Central Plains. Some Goguryons had even received honorary official titles from several generations of emperors. However, as Goguryeo gradually became stronger and the fires of war raged in the Central Plains, the friction between the two nations increased. Goguryeo was no longer content to remain a vassal. It was under these circumstances that Qin Miaoyu and Su Xing were sent to Liugong City as spies. Qin Miaoyu knew that they were only two of many Gogyeron spies lurking in Central Plains. Perhaps they'd go undiscovered their entire lives, or perhaps at some point they'd die. Though Liugong City was small, a remote settlement, it was linked with various cities in the western regions such as Khotan and Kyomo in the west. It was bordered by the Khotanese in the north, and its roads spilled into the interior regions of the Central Plains in the east. Its position was therefore both delicate and unique, and it was for this reason that Gogyearo had chosen it rather than such flourishing locales as Liu Yang or Yu Hong in the heart of the Central Plains. She had spent her first 4 years in the Central Plains familiarizing herself with life here. The family she lived with had a matriarch with the surname Qin who believed Qin Miaoyu's carefully crafted backstory and adored her like a blood niece. They also had a son of an age with Qin Miaoyu whom she referred to as a cousin. This son was a man of upright character who treated Miaoyu with the utmost care. The aunt had at one point thought of arranging a marriage between them, but Qin Miaoyu had refused time and again. She knew in her heart that she'd never be afforded the chance to marry and have children like an ordinary woman. That's a little sad. That's actually really sad. One day, Yu Qi Jinwu, who was at the time merely the nephew of the Khotanese king, arrived in Liugong City. Su Xing instructed Qin Miaoyu to seduce and marry Yu Qi Jinwu and accompany him back to Khotan. He believed Yang Jian, then still the Duke of Su, held immense influence and would inevitably seize power and become emperor in the future. If a new dynasty was established under this man, his dedication to progress would surely create friction with neighboring nations. Khotan was a small country in the western regions, but its location held strategic importance. It would very likely become a significant pawn in the game between great powers. Qin Miaoyu had no way to refuse. She was alone in Liugong City, and both the level of her martial arts and her ranking among spies was well below Su Xing's. She followed his orders and created various opportunities to encounter Yu Qi Jinwu, who was bewitched by her beauty and immediately offered to take her as his concubine. But her aunt's family strongly opposed the proposal. They believed Yu Qi Jinwu was a poor match for her. Her cousin drove him away from their door when he came to propose the marriage. But Qin Miaoyu insisted, and eventually they had no choice but to believe she was vain and longed for shallow splendor on the arm of a rich man. They allowed her to be married. She'd not returned to Liugong City since, and never again saw the benevolent Lady Qin and the family who'd treated her so well. After all, Yu Qi Jinwu was the nephew of the king of Khotan, a prince and noble. Qin Miaoyu's life in Khotan was far finer than her life in Liugong City and held no shortage of luxuries and delicacies. But she still often thought of the Qin family, far away in Liugong City. Even so, she knew she could not return. She never gave up her secret martial arts training, though her skills were still inferior. She would be considered a third-rate martial artist in the Central Plains at most. But this was a world where the strong were king, and this meager training was her only path to break free of her bindings. Yu Qi Jinwu was already wed to a legitimate wife in Khotan, along with several other lovely concubines. But Qin Miaoyu was both beautiful and talented, so he favored her above all. She lived like this for several years, up until he was appointed envoy by the king of Khotan and entrusted with escorting the tribute to the Central Plains. A few gentle words from Qin Miaoyu was all it took for him to agree to bring his beloved concubine along. He never imagined that this trip would be the last he ever took. When Su Xing had put a blade through Yu Qi Jinwu's chest, splattering her face with her husband's blood, her eyes had widened and she cried out softly. Su Xing had growled impatiently. "Shut up! Are you trying to attract more people? Go finish off the two maids." He left Qin Miaoyu and went to take care of the Khotanese guards. These were the Khotanese king's royal guards. They weren't just anyone. But in the Central Plains where talent abounded, they were powerless against a stronger foe. Qin Miaoyu realized that despite her years of arduous training, she could only defeat a few comparatively mediocre members of the convoy. Were she to challenge Su Xing, she'd be lucky to last longer than 10 moves. Ouch. That's not great. In the instant that fact became clear to her, she discarded the last scrap of guilt she felt toward Yu Qi Jinwu, and her hunger for the jade was born. Because he loved and valued her greatly, Yu Qi Jinwu had told her a secret. They hadn't brought one jade of heaven lake from Khotan, but two. For anyone who hadn't seen the true jade of heaven lake, they would never suspect the second stone was a fake. This stone was also a real piece of beautiful jade discovered in a mountain not far from the true jade at around the same time, but it lacked the matchless radiance the true stone possessed. The Khotanese king wanted to present both jades to the Emperor of Su to express his sincerity. Just before the assassination, Yu Qi Jinwu had told Qin Miaoyu where each of the two stones were hidden. Thus, Qin Miaoyu knew something Su Xing didn't. She boldly gave him the fake stone. She hid the real one and returned to the city with Su Xing before secretly heading back to the scene of the murders. There, she took the real jade from its hiding place, then snuck back into the city to conceal herself. Qin Miaoyu knew the legend of the jade of Heaven Lake. It could purify the body, shaping the tendons and clearing the marrow. Cleansing the marrow. The temptation to enhance her martial arts was too great. She couldn't help testing it. After several attempts, she discovered that if she exposed the jade of Heaven Lake to the light of the full moon and channeled qi through her palm, she would receive a trickle of cleansing qi in response. Qin Miaoyu had discovered the jade's secret. She treated it like the most precious of treasures and practiced her internal cultivation day and night. When Xiao Xian and Zhang Sun Bodhi followed the trail to her door, and the assassin from the 13 floors of Yunhai tried to take her life, Qin Miaoyu pretended to be harmless. She waited until Xiao Xian and her companion had defeated the assassin before slipping from their grasp and fleeing once more. In truth, she also wanted to test her martial progress, and the results were astonishing. A few days prior, she'd been a third-rate practitioner, yet now her internal cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. The jade really was extraordinary. It was only a matter of time before she absorbed all the energy from within the stone and became a first-rate master. But Qin Miaoyu was running out of time. Though she'd escaped from Qiao Xian and Zhang Sun, she'd been seriously injured in the process. She had no choice but to go to ground in the city until she regained her strength. When Feng Xiao obtained the names of her 3 hiding places from Su Xing, Qin Miaoyu was in the middle of leaving the house through the back gate. The place was supposed to be top secret, known only to Su Xing. She planned to take a risk and head to the city gates disguised as a widow who wished to visit her parents. Then she would leave with a merchant convoy she'd contacted. Qin Miaoyu had made up her mind. If this escape was successful, there was a boundless world waiting for her. No longer would she be a Gogyeron spy, nor anyone's thrall. She wanted to live proudly and openly, whether under the name Qin Miaoyu or another. She would live only for herself. With the jade in hand, even Su Xing couldn't order her around. Maybe she could even convince him to follow his own desires and leave too. This grand plan fell to pieces the moment she spied a man standing beneath a tree not far from the back gates. He watched her, smiling. He was extraordinarily beautiful. Qin Miaoyu had seen all sorts, yet this was the first time she'd ever seen anyone so handsome. But the sight of him didn't stir up the butterflies of a young girl in love. This was an intuition only martial artists felt when confronting a strong foe. What washed over her was cold terror. The Jade of Heaven Lake had not only merely improved her cultivation, It had fine-tuned her sense of danger. The handsome man smiled. Jin Yangzi, your reputation precedes you. Today we finally meet, and you truly are as radiant as they say, not at all inferior to those famous beauties. Jin Miaoyu calmed her fluttering heart and smiled. May this one ask your esteemed name? Miaoyu. Clever speech. Your name is quite nice, but mine sounds better, the man said. She had never met a man who talked to her in such a way. He was looking at her with appreciation, but it wasn't the appreciation of a great beauty. It was more like he was looking at a decently pretty flower. I'm called Feng Xiao, he said. Qin Miaoyu's heart jolted, and not because she was sighing over the sound of his name. She knew this man. So it's the master of the Jiajian Bureau. Qin Miaoyu was incredibly sharp. Before Feng Xiao could say why he'd come, she straightened her robe and bowed. I believe the gentleman has already met Su Sheng. Was he the one who led you here? She asked pleasantly. I have the Jade of Heaven Lake, and I can reunite it with its rightful owner. In return, there is one thing I ask. Feng Xiao stood with his hands clasped behind his back. You're not qualified to discuss terms with me, he said leisurely. Jin Miaoyu's smile was strained. The gentleman misunderstands. Miaoyu's life is in your hands. How could I discuss terms? I merely wanted to inform you of this. That night, on the outskirts of the city, Yuqi, Jinwu, and the others were all killed by Su Sheng. I only killed the two maids. If I hadn't done it, Su Sheng would have. And if I hadn't taken the Jade of Heaven Lake, Su Sheng would have sent it to Goguryeo long ago. For the first time, Feng Xiao looked at her squarely. He studied her face. This woman was intelligent, he realized. She pleaded for neither her life nor her freedom. Instead, she stated what had happened that day, attempting to shift the blame and move him with reason. Presumably, she already had realized that Feng Xiao couldn't be seduced and wouldn't let her off easily. She chose an unconventional gambit and attempted to blaze a new path. What does Goguryeo want with the stone? Feng Xiao asked. Qin Miaoyu didn't equivocate. Instantly, she said, I'm not clear on that myself, but Su Sheng said the king suffers from a strange illness with no cure. Perhaps it is related. Feng Xiao found her frankness deeply satisfying. Compared to Su Sheng, this woman was indeed smarter and more canny. If not for her bad luck and being betrayed by her accomplice, she might have really managed to dissemble her way out of the city and become the fish that had slipped into the great sea. Where's the stone? Asked Feng Xiao. Qin Miaoyu untied the embroidered bag at her waist and took out a piece of jade, which she carefully handed to Feng Xiao. The jade was the size of his palm, its body crystal clear. At the center was a dash of blue-green, rippling slowly in the sunlight as if alive. Before laying eyes on the real thing, Feng Xiao considered the jade he'd taken from Linlang Pavilion to be a rare and beautiful stone. But now he could immediately distinguish which was superior. The object in front of him was the true jade of Heaven Lake. Why is it so small? He asked. Qin Miaoyu glanced at him carefully. I heard that this object can enhance a person's martial arts, so I tried it. She could have attempted to hide it, but Feng Xiao would probably have already guessed anyway. Her life was in his hands. It was better to be honest. She didn't know that Feng Xiao was evaluating her intelligence. She saw how he made no move toward the jade and thought he was afraid she'd tampered with it somehow. Hello, Esper Lady. I'll do the summary in just a moment. We are literally like last paragraph of this chapter. She didn't know that Feng Xiao was evaluating her intelligence. She saw how he made no move toward the jade and thought he was afraid she'd tampered with it somehow. Hastily, she said, Feng Ling Jun, Miao Yu is completely at your mercy. I wouldn't dare try any tricks or schemes. Feng Xiao's mouth twitched, but ultimately he reached out and took the jade. Oh, hello, Truffle. Welcome to you, too. I'll summarize what's up in just a moment. We're finishing the last paragraph of this chapter. The instant it was in his hands, he felt a wave of bone-chilling cold. It was an indescribable feeling, like his entire body had been submerged in an icy river. Yet there was no discomfort. Instead, wisps of chill seeped through his limbs and bones and into his heart. His soul was bright and clear, as if touched by a divine hand. But at that moment, Feng Xiao wasn't thinking how magical the jade was. He was thinking that since he was going to hand it over anyway, anyone who could enjoy holding a stone that had been smeared with bean paste residue from a corpse's mouth was welcome to it. He was never going to touch it again under pain of death. Priorities! Okay. So what happened is we went further into the murder of Lu Yuniang, so the Lady Lu, the daughter of Lu Ti, and her murder. We confirmed it was a murder. Yes, the bean paste residue again. And we found out it was Su Shing, who wasn't actually Su Shing, but was a plant from Goguryeo. And he was one of the spies. And we also found out from this chapter, he was also the one who killed the Khotanese envoys, except for 2 maids. And we also found out that Qin Miaoyu was another Goguryeo plant, and that she's kind of trying initially to break free, and is now in the hands of Feng Xiao. Yes. And Feng Xiao was disgusted just recently because Chu Buchu gave Su Shing the tablet from Pei Jingzi, but he touched it with hands that he had put down a dead girl's throat to check for bean paste, so it had bean paste residue on it, and Feng Xiao is squigged out by it, and so he's like, I'm gonna give this to Chu Buchu, or it implies it, at least to me. So that is where we are. Okay. So we are at 1:12. We'll be 45 by the time I finish taking a drink. Yes. So that's where we are. How are you two doing? You doing good? Of course. Awesome. Yay! It's great when you finally are able to get off work and get home. Like, actually get home. Not even just get off work. Oh, no. Oh, is it beeping? Oh, that's irritating. All right. Chapter 37. Qiao Xian rushed back to their residence. As soon as she arrived, she realized Fo Air hadn't traced them there at all. Feng Xiao had tricked her. That is not going to help her point of view about the Jijian Bureau or their cooperation efforts. Not at all. Oh, that sucks, Truffle. I'm glad you solved it. But Chubuchu was still with Feng Xiao. At this thought, she turned to hurry back. She had only gone a short way when, to her surprise, she ran into a perfectly composed Chubuchu on his way home. Behind him was an eagle rider with a stranger slung over his saddle. This is Fo Er's disciple, captured by Feng Xiao. Lock him up somewhere. He'll be useful later when Fo Er arrives, Chubuchu said. He was talking about a living person like an object, but Xiao Xian nodded as if that was nothing out of the ordinary. She called someone to take Foer's disciple away. Song Ji had braced himself to remain silent in the face of the most gruesome torture. But to his surprise, no one asked him a single thing as they prepared to drag him off. The people of my... Okay. Hey, whatever gets it done, Truffle. Whatever gets it done. In a panic, he shouted in stilted Chinese, "Where are you taking me? Shifu will not stand for this." Chubuchu had one foot raised to step inside when he suddenly stopped. He turned and stood in front of Songji. "Do you have some way to contact your Shifu?" Songji said nothing, his face a mask of defiance. "Oh wow, we're almost done." Chubuchu threw a glance at Xiaoxian. "Tell him about the tortures he'll face at our Zuyue bureau." "Yes, sir," said Xiaoxian, face blank. "Moon through the veil. We soak layers of paper in water and press them over your face, leaving you unable to breathe. Eventually, you suffocate. Or we may snap all the tendons in your arms and legs, toss you into the water prison naked, and allow hungry pythons to feast on your flesh. You'll watch your feet and hands as they are eaten until the snakes have consumed everything and bite through your throat. This is called the 100 Birds Worship the Phoenix. There are also blessings as one wishes and exquisite from every angle. Which do you like best? I'll explain them to you. Slowly." Yeah, the beeping would not stand for me either. Sungji's face was so pale it was almost translucent, and he was trembling like a leaf. His Chinese was middling, but this he understood without issue. The most powerful thought in his mind just then was that the people of the Central Plains were terrifying. He even gave their grisly torture methods such beautiful names. He hadn't yet heard the explanations for blessing as one wishes and exquisite from every angle, but he knew they must be still crueler and more horrific. "What do you want?" His voice cracked. Oof. Well, I'm glad it got fixed, Truffle. "Contact your Shifu and plead for help," said Xiao Xian. "Get him to come here." "You want to kill him," Song Ji said stiffly. "I won't do it." "We won't kill him," said Jubuchu, "but if you don't call him, we have other ways of letting him know you're here." He turned to Xiaoxian. "Hang him from the bamboo building." There was a bamboo building next to the manor, its roof higher than those of nearby structures. Standing on that building, one could see out over most of the Yugong. If he hung Sung Ji up there, Foer would soon find out about it. Xiao Xian watched them haul Song Ji away. Hesitantly, she began, "Foer is the Kaganate's #1 expert." She left the rest unsaid, that even if she joined hands with Sang Soon Bo He, they might not defeat him. Chubuchu was unfazed. "No matter. Someone will come to help you." "Feng Xiao?" asked Xiao Xian. After a nod, Chubuchu had a thought. "Where did you learn so many torture techniques?" The Shuyue Bureau was an agency that handled cases and investigations. It wasn't a prison of the Ministry of Justice, and it certainly wouldn't use techniques like blessing as one wishes or exquisite from every angle. Even the Ministry of Justice hadn't heard of such things. Xiao Xian looked sheepish. "I just rattled off a load of nonsense. I only wanted to scare him." Chubuchu coughed twice, slightly relieved. "Excellent. Tailoring your words to the ones you address. That is something I would do too. I used to worry you were too rigid and would only be able to bully honest souls like Pei Jingzi. while people like Feng Xiao would run circles around you. Xiao Xian was speechless for a moment. Are you having pains in your chest again? The subordinate called for a doctor earlier. He's waiting in the front hall now. Your lordship can go for an examination. Sorry, just a moment. I'm cold. I think my heating pad turned off. Hang on. Better. Okay. Oi. Xiao Xian was speechless a moment. Are you having pains in your chest again? The subordinate called for a doctor earlier. He's waiting in the front hall now. Your lordship can go for an examination. Chubuchu's feet had been taking him to the front hall, but now he veered sharply away. Xiao Xian heard him murmur, I just remembered. I touched the corpse with this hand and I haven't washed it yet. I should go wash now. Wordlessly, Xiao Xian stepped forward and grabbed Chubuchu. She began dragging him toward the front hall without compunction. I'll have water and soap sent in. You were drugged with incense of helplessness. The residual poison was never expelled, and you spent a night exposed to the elements. You must let the doctor look at you. Xiao Xian usually obeyed Chubuchu unconditionally. Only on the matter of his health did she become insistent. She'd seen Chubuchu ill and bedridden too recently, coughing until he choked on his own blood. After the latest incident, everyone in the Shu Yue Bureau developed a tacit understanding. As long as they were there, Chubuchu would never suffer that greatly again. Oh, that's kind of sweet. They really do care about him. I mean, I picked on that from the fiercely protective reaction that they had when they were like, what did you do to him? When they first found him. And I'm not sure exactly what you mean about the fist torture, Truffle. It is really cute that they're so loyal. I agree, Truffle. Chubuchu wasn't a good-tempered man, but now, rather than scowling and castigating his subordinates as usual, he shut his mouth and let Xiao Xian draw him toward the front hall. She couldn't help adding, last year, that incident, I don't want to see it happen again. Chubuchu was silent a moment. It won't. Last year, Chubuchu had fallen seriously ill and almost died, scaring everyone in the Shuyui Bureau out of their wits. Song Liang Chen, one of the deputy chiefs, had strictly forbidden Chubuchu from leaving his bed. He'd called in doctors to attend Chubuchu in shifts so that there was one at Chubuchu's bedside night and day. But Chubuchu had been restless from birth. The instant he felt a little better, he got up and began running hither and thither, yearning to leap from the capital to the ends of the earth. When the order for the negotiations with Appa Kagan's envoy came down, the expressions of everyone in the Zhuyu Bureau had been pitch black, except Chubuchu, who was in high spirits. He devised a vast and meticulous game of chess that lasted almost 2 months, and he didn't stop at pulling Feng Xiao onto the board. He placed himself there too. Something Pratchett made up. From what I understand, the guard opens a bottle of soda right in front of someone's... Huh. Pratchett, that name is scratching something in my brain. So I probably have learned about him, but I don't remember the fizz experiment. I remember some other fucked up experiments. But yeah. Terry Pratchett. Oh! Okay. Yeah, makes more sense. That does seem very Terry Pratchett-y. My favorite one is Guards, Guards, Guards. Guards, Guards, Guards makes me laugh. Got it. Xiao Xian couldn't help but sigh at the thought, and her grip on Chubuchu tightened. If a doctor prescribes medicine, you must drink it. Yeah, it's a good one. The corner of Chubuchu's mouth twitched. I'm really fine. Then run a lap around that osmanthus tree right there. If you don't cough, you can skip the medicine. Chubuchu's face grew stormy. Nonsense! Who do you take my venerable self for? You can't order me around. They glared at each other. Qian Xiao refusing to back down. Finally, it was Chubuchu who broke first. Fine, I'll drink it. He rolled his eyes. Xiao Xian's lips curved into a small smile. The maids here had all been hired as temporary help. Though their backgrounds were clean, they weren't members of Shu Yu Bureau and therefore didn't know much about Chubuchu and Xiao Xian's relationship. They all thought Xiao Xian carried a torch for Chubuchu, that perhaps the sentiment was mutual. How could they know Chubuchu's place in Xiao Xian's heart was far weightier than that? To her, he was the master and father, brother and friend. I hope nothing horrible happens to her. Because that sentence just makes me think something horrible's going to happen to her. Usually Danmei authors put characters that actually care through terrible shit. Many years ago, before she was the woman she was now, she'd found herself in desperate circumstances. Her body had been covered in bruises, her left eye almost blind. That sucks. I've been there. It's disorienting. She'd lain in this, not the bruises, the eye. She'd lain in the snow, her breathing slowly fading, thinking it didn't matter if she never woke up. Whether she lived or died, nothing in this world would change. It was Chubuchu who'd passed by and plucked her from the streets. Xiao Xian knew she was merely a bit of side trouble he'd picked up. He had no particular interest in her, but if not for him, the woman she was today would never exist. It wasn't until she'd been with Chubuchu some time that she realized how fragile his body was. He was so delicate, even a slight breeze could bring on a chill that would leave him bedridden for days. He fell seriously ill at the drop of a hat and looked like he might pass away any second. If they hadn't always managed to find a doctor in time, by now the grass on his tomb would surely have grown tall. Yet it was this same sickly Chubuchu who possessed an eidetic memory, who could strategize to perfection, who knew the stories of Jianghu like the back of his hand. He grasped all the world's affairs without needing to step out of the house. She remembered something Chubuchu had once said. If you believe your existence is insignificant, no one else will take you seriously either. I'm different from you. I am who I am. Even if I fall ill, even if I'm on the brink of death, even if my limbs are crippled, no one can replace me, Chubuchu. This kind of man, even if his life could be extinguished at any moment, he burned so brightly that no one could ignore him. I could see that, Truffle. I could definitely see a Danmei Minecraft homes. Minecraft. Sorry. I think I just called him Minecraft, which is highly offensive to Minecraft. Around kids at work too often. Oh, Minecraft. This kind of man, even if his life could be extinguished at any moment, he burned so brightly that no one could ignore him. There was no doubt about it. The one in charge of the Shu Yue Bureau wasn't the strongest martial artist, Zhang Xun Bod He, nor the brilliant strategist Song Liang Chen, and nor was it Xiao Xian. It was Chubuchu. Zhang Xun's martial arts could protect many people, but it was Chuba Chu who set everyone's hearts at ease. Yeah, this is suspiciously sweet. Something awful's about to happen. One of them's gonna die. Like at this point, when stuff gets sweet like this, someone's about to die. There were many problems in the world that could be resolved with force, and there were also many that couldn't. Did I just smudge my nail polish? I hope not. But all these problems, when they fell into Chuba Chu's hands, would ultimately be resolved. It looked like Qiao Xian and the others were protecting Chuba Chu, but in truth, it was Chuba Chu who protected them. As long as Chuba Chu was there, the Shu Yui Bureau was as stable as bedrock, and they were all free from worry. But though Chuba Chu had a heart of iron, there was one thing he hated more than anything else, and that was drinking medicine. Oh my gosh, that reminds me of Golden Terrace. No matter how much medicine one drank, even if they grew accustomed to its bitter and peculiar taste, they would never come to love it. To make matters worse, Chuba Chu could scarcely go a week without being made to drink several bowls of the stuff. Between holding his nose and drinking all that nauseatingly bitter medicine, or letting Feng Xiao drug him with more incense of helplessness, he'd prefer the latter. At least then he could endure the suffering under his own willpower. But Xiao Xian would never let him off that easily. So it was that when Appa Kagan's envoy first laid eyes on the Count Ambassador she was supposed to negotiate with, she encountered a stony, sullen face. I imagine it was super, super bitter. Yes, Chinese medicine must have been vile. A lot of the herbs they talk about are bitter. And this is a personal headcanon, like historical personal headcanon. I kind of wonder if they're part of the population that like have high sensitivity to bitter on their tongue. I think it's like what the litmus test thing, like you lick the paper, and if it tastes bitter, like you have the extra taste buds on your tongue, you're more sensitive to bitter. I wonder if that's also an aspect of it. I mean, yes, definitely what they're working with is bitter. And like back then medicine like used a lot of root of this, or like extract of that, or like bark of this. So like sugar also was a luxury that most everyone could not, like, it was a royal luxury, like, so yes, they probably were vile, absolutely vile. Anyway, headcanon over. I have absolutely no basis in scientific fact. I had some pills from one acupuncturist, and let me tell you, you did not let them dissolve. I believe it. There's some stuff that I use called Jin Chow, and it is basically my Chinese cold snap, and it works amazingly. But like again, you don't let it dissolve. You swallow that down as fast as possible. You can buy it on Amazon. It's good. Not sponsored. Just saying. Since ancient times, whenever two countries met in negotiations, the envoys were almost always men. This was established convention. In the Khaganate, the Khagan's wife was known as the Khatun. Though the Khatun wielded some power in military and political affairs, the Khaganate wasn't a nation that held women in high regard. Thus, when the Zhuoyui Bureau saw that Appa had sent a woman to negotiate, their first reaction was to doubt her identity. The female envoy arrived with 2 guards and stayed within the manor for 2 days in seclusion. Her curiosity never drove her to come out for a look around, nor did she take the initiative to call upon Chubuchu. She merely sat in her quarters and waited quietly for Chubuchu's summons. Her patience alone was extraordinary. The woman before them now wore a dark red dress, the styling obviously Gokturk, and even her hair accessories and braids had a foreign charm. Her face was slightly tanned, the corners of her eyes weathered by wind and sand, but she was nonetheless an exotic beauty. This beauty wasn't the kind appreciated by the people of the Central Plains, who were used to fair and delicate. Hang on. Fair and delicate skin, brows like distant mountains, and eyes like autumn pools. Instead, her beauty bespoke a powerful vitality that wouldn't bend to rain or wind. Chubuchu had just drunk a large bowl of bitter medicine and was in no mood to appreciate the unique allure of this female envoy. As soon as they were seated, he got straight to the point. You are the envoy sent by Appa Kagan? It wasn't Chubuchu's way to be overly welcoming, but in this case his attitude gave her the mistaken impression that he looked down on her for being a woman. Correct. My Chinese name is Jin Lian. May I ask your Excellency's esteemed name? Chubuchu. Chubuchu arched a brow. You're named for the golden lotuses that grow on the grasslands? Jin Lian looked surprised. Correct. My Gokturk name comes from the golden lotus, so I am called simply Jin Lian in Chinese. Who are you to Appa Kagan? Why are you his representative? And how can I trust that what you say is the will of the Kagan? Irked, Jin Lian said, I am Appa Kagan's Khatun. She paused, then added, the lesser Khatun. Chubuchu had done his research on Appa Kagan, and he knew Appa Kagan had two Khatuns. A lesser Khatun held the same status a concubine might in the Central Plains. However, Appa's greater Khatun was getting on in years and didn't handle such weighty matters. It was therefore the lesser Khatun who most often supported him in affairs both major and minor. The fact that Jin Lian had come personally demonstrated the importance of this negotiations to the Appa Kagan. Of course, for Jin Lian to come herself, she must also possess courage and charisma no less than that of a man. It was small wonder she felt slighted when she saw this Central Plains dynasty had sent an envoy as feeble and sickly as Chubuchu. Noting her obvious displeasure, Qiao Xian said, Our master here is the chief of the Shuyue Bureau, with a rank equivalent to 6 ministries. To the 6 ministries. Even if you have never heard of the Shuyue Bureau, you must have heard of Great Su's Minister of Justice, who was formerly the Minister of Capital Affairs. This year, the Ministry of Capital Affairs had been renamed the Ministry of Justice. Though this news had yet to reach the Khaganate, Jin Lian had indeed heard of the Minister of Capital Affairs. Within the Department of State Affairs, the 6 ministers sat beneath the left and right vice directors. If Chubuchu was equal to one of the 6 ministers, his official position was a high one. Ruffled feathers, somewhat soothed, she said, It seems Chu Liangjun is an accomplished man. It is I who is ignorant. Chubuchu inclined his head slightly. He didn't beat around the bush. I trust Appa Kagan has an important message for us if the lesser Kagan has come herself. Jin Lian seemed to dislike going around in circles or using obfuscating language. She answered promptly, Yes, Ishbara is ambitious. He wishes to foment a war. I came for the sake of the peace between our 2 nations. How does your eminent emperor view this matter? Her words were lofty, but in truth, the rapid expansion of Ishbar's authority and influence had enraged the heavily encroached upon Appa Kagan and forced him to this extremity. At Jin Lian's urging, he'd realized the enemy of an enemy was a friend and sent her in search of an alliance with the Su dynasty. Of course, His Majesty, too, wishes for long-term peace and stability at the border, Chubachu said. However, Ishbara is determined to disturb Great Su's peace. What can we do but counter force with force? If Appa Kagan is willing to work with us, a portion of Ishbar's territory may be allotted to him once the situation is resolved. You need only travel to Dashing City each year and offer quality horses as tribute. Jin Lian refused unequivocally. We are not vassals of the Su dynasty. The lesser Khatun doesn't wish to consider this further. Chubachu smiled thinly. Indignant, Jin Lian snapped. At first I thought you sincere, but it seems the people of the Central Plains will always try to take advantage of others. We would be the ones assisting you with Ishbara, so why should we submit to you? Chubuchu was unruffled. Our people have split our forces into several groups. Two are even now heading to Bagha and Tardu, Kagan, respectively. As far as I know, they are both also at odds with Ishbara, so there's a good chance they'll agree to a proposal of mutual cooperation. If Bagha and Tardu agree and only Appa Kagan refuses, won't it be on your head? Jin Lian's expression shifted. Chubuchu smiled. Lesser Khatun, you are in the land of the Hans. If you complete this mission successfully, the chips in your hand will increase and you will climb higher. But what if you fail? What awaits you may be the loss of Appa Kagan's favor. In that case, will you still be able to realize your wishes? Jin Lian looked at the man before her. She hadn't taken this man from the Central Plains with his stark white face and frail constitution, especially so compared to a Gokturk man, seriously. She'd felt disdain and dissatisfaction towards the Emperor of the Central Plains for sending such an invalid to treat with her. But now his gaze was like an arrow, piercing the depths of her innermost mind. All her desires, concealed and unknown to others, had been bared to him in an instant. Her back broke out into a cold sweat. I don't know what you're saying. She steadied herself with some effort. No matter. Chubachu looked at her with eyes full of pity. It's just that after tonight, you may not have the chance to speak again. What do you mean? Jin Lian was instantly on guard. You wish to kill me? But why would Chubachu do such a thing? Chubachu shook his head. Not me. Someone else. Who? Who? As if in response to her unasked question, something whistled down from overhead. Jin Lian rolled to the side without thinking. The next moment, the place where she'd knelt and the table in front of her were smashed to kindling. The two Gokturk guards who'd accompanied her cried out, leaping forward to confront the intruder. But when Jin Lian caught sight of the newly arrived enemy, her face drained of color. Chubachu brought his sleeves together with perfect poise, as if he didn't realize the newcomer wanted to kill him along with Jin Lian. He turned to her with great amusement and said, Speak of the devil, the number one martial artist of the Khaganate, Foer. You must be familiar with him. Tonight our humble abode overflows with distinguished company. All we lack is a jar of good wine. All right, 1 second. I need to blow my nose. And 44:15. Chapter 38. Foer, under Ishbara's orders, had come to Liugong city with a single purpose, not to obtain the jade stone, but to disrupt negotiations between Great Su and Appa Kagan. Before Jin Lian arrived in Liugong city, killing the Su dynasty's envoy was the best way to accomplish this. But now Jin Liang had appeared, and killing her would also bring negotiations to an abrupt end. Even if Appa Kagan somehow found another envoy with courage, smarts, and the willingness to risk life and limb, traveling alone to the Central Plains, Jin Liang's death would undoubtedly estrange the two sides, and their alliance would crumble before it even began. Thus, when Jin Lian and Chubuchu appeared in front of him at the same time, Foer didn't hesitate to disregard Chubuchu and target Appa Kagan's lesser Khatun. Jin Liang was a martial artist in her own right. She shot arrows on horseback and dueled on foot. In the Khaganate, she too was considered a heroine. Still, there was a clear gap in ability between her and the Gokturk's #1 martial artist. She was driven into a corner within 10 moves. Her two guards rushed in to save her, and one was struck fatally in the chest, coughing up blood and dying on the spot, while the other's arm was broken, taking him out of the fight. Xiao Xian and Zhang Sun Bodhi had returned some time ago. Now they stood on either side of Chubuchu, protecting him, but didn't move forward to rescue Jin Liang. Panicked, Jin Liang shouted, "He's going to kill me! Do you plan to stand there and watch me die?" Slowly, Chubuchu said, "Jin Liang, Khatun, Ishbara has forced your Kagan to retreat time and again. If you perish, our great Su will still have allies in Bagha and Tardu, Kagan. With or without you, it makes little difference. My position as an official will see neither promotion nor demotion on your account. Consider this carefully." Jin Liang was staring death in the face. She stood no chance against an elite martial artist like Foer. Still, she fought onward, hanging on to her life by her fingernails. After 15 moves, she could retreat no further. The force of a palm blast scraped past her shoulder and blossomed into agony, but Foer didn't stop. He truly intended to kill her. Perhaps the Gokturks weren't as subtle as the people of the Central Plains in how they handled affairs, but their nobles engaged in no less backstabbing and infighting. Their bloodshed was no gentler than the power struggles seen elsewhere. Jin Liang had married Appa Kagan in her teens and had climbed step by step to her current position. It had cost her unimaginable effort. How could she be willing to die so suddenly in such a comical fashion? "If Chubuchu won't save you, I will." A soft chuckle rang in Jin Liang's ear. Seconds later, the overwhelming pressure before her eased. A figure stood in front of her, receiving the full brunt of Foer's all-out palm strike. True chi burst outward from the two elite martial experts and shoved Jin Liang several feet back. Having walked the boundary between life and death seconds ago, Jin Liang ignored the ripping pain in her upper back and felt only the drumming of her heart and the throbbing of her temples. She felt as if her feet were stepping on clouds, her entire body limp. At that moment, she was like anyone who'd barely escaped death. Her shocked gaze swept over her subordinates, one dead and one wounded, then fell upon the man who was fighting Foer. Both moved as swiftly as wraiths. Despite Jin Liang's skills, she couldn't distinguish their strikes. She'd retreated a good distance, yet she could still feel their internal energy expanding towards her. She shifted farther away. "Jin Liang Khatun, How are your deliberations going? Chubuchu asked carelessly. I seem to have heard Ishbara has several other extraordinary martial artists at his disposal. Besides Foer, there are two more powerful experts almost at the level of Grand Master. Should he dispatch a few more men, I fear you might not return to the Khaganate at all. Jin Liang grit her teeth. She understood perfectly why Chubuchu had stood by and refused to save her. This had been his goal. But what could she do? This man's words had expertly targeted her weakness. She'd concealed her name and disguised her appearance to travel to the Central Plains, and her journey had been fraught with danger. She had managed to survive, but that didn't mean she'd be so fortunate on the return trip. Jin Liang believed that once the alliance was established, Great Su would dispatch soldiers to escort her back. But now they were at a stalemate, and if it couldn't be resolved, she'd have to return empty-handed and alone. The number of quality horses can be negotiated, and the nature of the alliance between the two sides has already been agreed. The Kagan will have no objections, and I can finalize the details on his behalf. However, I can't make the decisions in regard to tribute. Here's what I suggest. Chu Langjun can travel with me to the Kagan's encampment and meet with him personally. They will be far more effective than sending me back by myself. Chubuchu knew that this was the limit of what Jin Lian could offer, so he didn't push her further. He nodded. Then I request that Jin Lian, Khatun, please pen a handwritten letter and stamp it as proof of authenticity. I'll send it to the capital for His Majesty to review. Quickly, Jin Lian said, That won't be a problem. I already brought a letter from the Kagan with me. I only need someone who can read Turkic. I can, said Chubuchu. His brief, matter-of-fact answer made Jin Lian look at him in a new light. The negotiations were thus concluded, but the battle between Feng Xiao and Foer was far from over. Foer's martial arts were slightly inferior to Feng Xiao's, but only slightly. While Foer might not be able to defeat him, he should certainly be able to escape without coming to harm. However, he'd come here tonight with two goals, an assassination and a rescue. Until he achieved both, he didn't intend to leave. Foer's rise to prominence came at a time when the famed experts of the past had either become sect leaders or secluded themselves within the mountains and forests. They were difficult to trace and even more difficult to actually find. Since coming to the Central Plains, Foer had challenged masters one after another. His martial prowess was great, and the difficulty he'd had in finding worthy opponents led him to believe the reputation of Central Plains martial artists was overblown. Until he met Feng Xiao. Feng Xiao was a rare foe, the kind one might meet once or twice in a lifetime. His martial arts were swift and unpredictable, but his internal energy was steady and profound. His level of skill should have been impossible to achieve at his young age. Foer had suspected since their first encounter that Feng Xiao had learned under the tutelage of a great expert, or that Feng Xiao himself was a grandmaster who'd managed to reverse his aging. Foer had been beaten back at Hu Yang Forest, and now it seemed defeat was once again inevitable. On top of that, while Feng Xiao alone was a daunting opponent, Zhang Sun and Qiao Xian were also lurking nearby. Though they merely watched for now, their presence sealed potential routes of attack and retreat, hemming him in from all sides until he was overwhelmed. He caught a glimpse of Chubuchu standing in the far corner, and a plan came to mind. Oh, and right there you sealed your fate. From within the dancing sparks, Foer's figure leapt toward the rafters. Though he was tall and broad-shouldered, the leap was like a white crane soaring into the air, light, nimble, and almost soundless. Feng Xiao pursued at once, but Foer had already burst out onto the roof. His aim wasn't to escape or even to rescue his disciple. Instead, he raised his palm and struck down at the roof tiles beneath his feet. Oh, hell, thought Feng Xiao. He only had time to shout, "Run!" With a roar, the entire roof collapsed. Broken tiles and bricks rained down, and the 10-foot pillars supporting the rafters swayed and fell under the shock waves of Fo Air's internal energy, burrowing the people inside. In the blink of an eye, the place was flattened. Those with some martial arts, like Jin Liang, were better off. Though injured and caught off guard, she managed to avoid the worst of the collapse. But her surviving guard, who had broken his arm, was not so lucky. He was crushed beneath the rubble, his fate unknown. Feng Xiao's face was like a thundercloud. He had finally discarded his carefree expression and turned to perform a rescue. Pei Jingzi had nearly been crushed by a pillar, and though he'd managed to dodge death, his cheek was patterned with scratches from flying debris, and his back burned with pain where it had been struck. As he looked around, he remembered Chu Chu, who knew no martial arts. His face paled. Sir, Chu. Feng Xiao strolled over and kicked at a pillar. Though he didn't appear to exert much force, the 10-foot pillar went flying and crashed down some distance away. Where it had been, a pale hand struck out of the rubble. Shocked, Pei Jingzi ran over to help. When they managed to clear the debris, they found the hand didn't belong to Chu Chu, but to Qiao Xian. Qiao Xian and Zhang Sun Bodhi had shielded Chu Chu with their bodies, protecting him. All three were pulled from the wreckage. Though his deputies had suffered some minor wounds, Chu Chu himself seemed to be entirely unharmed. How did Deputy Chief Fang allow Foer to escape? Chu Chu asked with raised eyebrows. Feng Xiao answered in his usual breezy way. Of course it's because I saw you buried under the rubble. My heart burned with worry, and all I could think of was saving you. Chu, it's really too unkind of you to complain. Here, feel my chest. My heart's still pounding away. And yes, he does kind of get the Yan Wuxi voice. Like, it's a little higher pitched, but he definitely gives off the same vibes. So he gets the voice. Pei Jingzi thought, whose heart wouldn't pound? Are you a corpse? But he was still Feng Xiao's subordinate, after all. He couldn't embarrass his superior, so he schooled himself to silence. Yeah, no. I do love their dynamic. It was clear Chu Chu was in no mood to debate with Feng Xiao either. He looked at Jin Lian and said, Abba Kagan's letter. Jin Lian's arm was injured, and she struggled to pull the document from her lapels. Xiao Xian took it and verified it wasn't poison before handing it to Chu Chu, who shook the dust from his clothes and opened it. A head suddenly leaned in close. Chu Chu almost slapped the letter right into the interloper's face. Hey, what language is this? Turkic? Taoist Master Chu is truly extraordinary. You can even read their language fluently. Chu, or Chu, or Taoist Master Chu. The address he used depended entirely on his mood, also very Yan Wuxi coded. Chu had long since grown numb to it. He skimmed the letter, making sure it really was penned by Appa Kagan himself. Then he stuffed it into Feng Xiao's hands and said to Jin Lian, We will accompany you to the Khaganate to personally meet with Appa Kagan. Delighted, Jin Lian straightened her spine to answer. Wonderful! I must ask Chu Liang Jun to please set a date so we can depart as soon as possible. Fu Air has escaped, and Ishbar's faction will soon learn of this alliance. They won't hesitate to send someone to kill us on the road. Bringing Chu back with her meant not only would she have protection on her journey, she would return with an envoy of Great Su. It was a contribution that would buttress the stability of her position within the tribe. There is much we must still discuss, said Chu. It's getting late, and the Khatun has had a shock tonight. Please rest first, and I'll send someone for a doctor to treat your wounds. Jin Lian nodded, finally allowing herself to slump with exhaustion. Thank you very much, Liang Jun. As for my two subordinates, I must ask Chu Liang Jun to arrange their burials. She left with the aid of a maid supporting shoulder. Feng Xiao saw Chubuchu about to turn away as well and grabbed his arm. Chubuchu drew in a sharp breath. He'd just been crushed beneath a pillar. Even with Zhang Sun and Xiao Xian protecting him, he'd still sprained his wrist in the chaos. Now, as Feng Xiao tugged on him, his injury became apparent. Xiao Xian glared and struck out immediately at Feng Xiao. He smoothly let go and stepped back, saying, Hold it. What did you mean by, we will accompany you? Who's we? The corners of Chubushu's lips turned up. Me and you. That's the definition of we. Feng Xiao was finally shocked into silence. Ooh, last chapter of the book is here. I think I'm also out of water. So 2 hours and 30 minutes. Or 30 seconds. Not minutes. All right. We are... Hang on. 1 second. Sorry. Okay. There was a text I had to take care of. Okay. I'll change it to a minute so then it's accurate. Chapter 39. The moon and stars were above, wine and tea below. Feng Xiao and Chubuchu sat facing each other. Outside the pavilion, a gentle breeze blew, and the new grass sprouts peeked from the cold ground. If one ignored that the house had collapsed and Foer had taken his disciple and fled, it was a beautiful night. Feng Xiao looked at Chubuchu, who sat across the table from him. He was in fact drinking neither tea nor wine. Instead, he picked up a bowl of medicine. He hesitated. Then, with the expression of one bravely facing his death, he closed his eyes, tipped his head, and poured the medicine into his mouth. Anyone watching would have thought him committing suicide via poison. Chubuchu had drunk many bitter medicines before, yet he believed the doctor who'd prescribed him this one might have had a grudge against him. The sharp bitterness on his tongue made him shudder. When he returned to his senses, he saw Feng Xiao watching him with great interest. How are things going with Qin Miao Yu? Chubuchu asked. We retrieved the jade. Feng Xiao didn't add that the jade was only half its original size, thanks to Qin Miao Yu absorbing its powers, nor that the pool of blue-green at the center had grown fainter. These things had nothing to do with Chubuchu. Searching for the jade had always been Feng Xiao's business, along with all the subsequent difficulties. The case of the Khotanese envoy's murder was now considered closed. Though some unknowns remained, Su Xing and Qin Miao Yu had been captured and the jade retrieved. And in line with their agreement, Feng Xiao was to acknowledge that the Shu Yue Bureau's contribution in finding the jade and the murderer. Chubuchu was slightly surprised. So Qin Miao Yu survived? I'm curious. What kind of secrets does she know that convinced you to let her live? Am I not but an indiscriminate killer in your eyes? Your words have shattered my heart. Even if I patch it, it will never be as it was. Please speak in human tongue. A single woman traveled to the Central Plains as a Gogyeron spy and remained incognito for many years. That alone demonstrates her extreme fortitude. Chubuchu immediately took Feng Xiao's meaning. The Khotanese king had no children, and Yu Qi Jinwu had been his most valued nephew. If not for his death, he'd probably have inherited the throne one day. Considering Qin Miaoyu's abilities and Yu Qi Jinwu's love for her, she may have very well risen to the rank of royal consort and become capable of effectively manipulating the royal court of Khotan. The Goguerons had placed such a pawn thousands of miles away. Of course, their goal hadn't been merely to control the royal consort of a tiny nation far from their borders, but to use her to stir up the political situation in the western regions and thereby affect the Sui dynasty and the Khotanese. With the region's great powers at each other's throats, Goguryeo would be at an advantage. Whoever had hatched this plot must possess great foresight. Though Goguryeo was a small nation, it clearly wasn't lacking for talent. Unfortunately, the Gogyeron king's strange illness and the appearance of the Jade of Heaven Lake had made the Gogierons impatient. They'd mobilized Qin Miaoyu and Su Xing much earlier than planned. If not for this, they might never have been discovered. Who sent Qin Miaoyu and Su Xing to the Central Plains, mused Chubuchu. And whom else did they send? When the wise spoke to the wise, much breath was spared. Feng Xiao gave Chubuchu an appreciative look. Though he had certainly caused the Jijian Bureau a heap of trouble, it was rare to meet such a worthy rival. He had only one life, after all, and a peaceful and uneventful one would be far too dull. Feng Xiao had previously surmised that, given Chubuchu's abilities, many would want to recruit him even without martial arts. People like Chubuchu had clear goals and the drive to achieve them. As long as he was offered a high enough position, Chubuchu surely would have come. But fate laughs at the plans of men. Feng Xiao had ended up trying to recruit the chief of the Shuyue Bureau. Needless to say, Chubuchu would never give up his position and lower himself to become the fourth deputy chief of the Jijian Bureau. He might even hold a grudge for the way Feng Xiao tried to recruit someone out from under him. There were so many grudges between them now that Feng Xiao found he didn't mind. The one who sent them is Go Un, the master of Go Niang. He's the brother of King Go Tang of Goguryeo and said to be the only martial arts grandmaster in the country. Though Go Un didn't hold an official position, according to Feng Xiao's information, he exerted significant influence on Go Tang's government. He also founded the Bu Yio sect, which played a role similar to the Jijian Bureau. He was a spy master acting in the interests of his own country, arranging infiltrations into other nations and ferreting out secret intelligence. There was no doubt about it. Su Xing and Qin Miaoyu were members of the Bu Yio sect. Qin Miaoyu holds a low position in Bu Yio sect. Go Un has always looked down on women. He relies on their sex appeal to perform low-level intelligence work. Only Su Xing had the power to contact the Bu Yio sect, but he doesn't know much either. All he could tell us was that the person who brought them to the Central Plains was called Yi Xiansheng. A woman like Qin Miaoyu might be too timid and afraid to act out while young and inexperienced, but during the years she'd spent at Yu Qi Jinwu's concubine, she'd had plenty of practice deflecting the schemes of his other wives and fighting to stabilize her own favor and position, all while collecting intelligence, contacting Su Xing, and seeking out advantages for Goguryeo. After all she'd learned, how could the Bu Yio sect possibly restrain her? It wasn't surprising she'd longed to throw off their yoke. Yi, as in ease? Chu didn't care what plans Feng Xiao had for Qin Miaoyu. He was more interested in this Yi Xiansheng. Feng Xiao dipped his finger into the tea, then drew a single horizontal line on the table. Yi, as in one. All came from one, and to one all would return. That one. One was the origin of all things, the starting point of all numbers, yet in its singularity it could be infinitely great. Lao Tzu said. Laozi said, a semi legendary Chinese philosopher who authored the Taoist classic Tao Te Ching. Embrace the one and set an example to all. In the beginning, the cosmos was one before splitting into heaven and earth, transforming into all things. Anyone who'd use such a word as their code name was no ordinary person. This Yi Xiansheng wasn't just Su Xing's contact in the Central Plains. They likely held a high position in the Bu Yio sect. And whoever they were, they'd hidden themselves in the Central Plains for many years. If Qin Miaoyu had almost managed to become a Khotanese royal consort, Yi Xiansheng's false identity could not be a humble one. The lesser hermit hides in the wilderness, while the greater hermit hides in the marketplace. Things were getting interesting. They'd solved a case only to uncover another thread buried deep within. If they followed that thread, where would it lead them? Chu Buchu trusted Feng Xiao had reached the same conclusions and was similarly intrigued. Perhaps he'd only told Chu Buchu this much in order to drag him into the snarl. But Chu Buchu had always been a restless person. The thornier the problem, and the more difficulties he encountered, the more fascinated he became. I told you so much, said Feng Xiao. Shouldn't you return the favor? Chu Buchu smiled. Of course. That's why I invited Deputy Chief Fang to come with me to the Khotanese to meet Appa Kagan. Feng Xiao raised a slender brow. So this is how you return a favor? Aren't you just making trouble for me for the sake of it? How could you think so? Said Chu Buchu. I ask you, didn't you promise to bring me Foer's head? I promised to kill Foer for you, but I didn't say when. Whether I kill him today or tomorrow, it still counts. I could even kill him a year from now, right? Chu Buchu smiled without pleasure. You heard what I told Jin Lian tonight. Though she is the Khatun of Appa, she has little power. Her role was simply to travel here on Appa's behalf and deliver the letter he penned. If we wish to negotiate further, to try and grab more benefits for the Su dynasty, I must personally make this trip to the Khaganate. For I escaped you, so I'll definitely ambush Jin Lian and me on the road. If we die, will you still get credit for cementing an alliance with Appa Kagan? So you're saying I absolutely must go? There's no such thing as a free lunch. If Deputy Chief Fang wants the accolades, he must make the trip. Feng Xiao smiled. You're not afraid I'll kill you on the return trip and take credit for all your work? Chu Buchu returned his gaze. If that happens, I can only lament my fate. However, if I'm dead, then Deputy Chief Fang might find himself missing out on some interesting news. Such as? Such as that I know who sent the two assassins from the 13 floors of Yunhai. I also know that Yu Xiu, the prince of Jin's most trusted counselor, didn't come to Liugong City solely for the jade. He had other objectives. After all, though the Shuyui Bureau doesn't have the manpower of the Jijian Bureau, we still have our ways of obtaining information. How else could we survive? Choo choo. Feng Xiao's tone was affectionate now. I want to ask one more question. What makes you think I wouldn't want to go with you? Just seeing you every day improves my appetite. So Deputy Chief Fang has agreed, said Jubichu. I thank you on behalf of Jin Lian Khatun. They stared at each other, their mouths curving into matching fake smiles. As for what curses they were swearing in their hearts, only they knew. Why call me Deputy Chief Fang? Haven't I already told you? Call me Fang Air. Or if you're willing, Air Long. That would be even better. Chubuchu coughed twice and promptly disregarded Feng Xiao's nonsensical request. We're going to the camp of Apakagan. To get there, we must pass through Chiamo and Kucha, which is a long, wind-blown journey. Make sure you get some rest. With that he stood, drew up his cloak, and swept out the door with Qiao Xian close behind. As their footfalls gradually faded into the distance, Feng Xiao smiled. He murmured, "Who wants me dead so badly? And they didn't even come themselves. They sent people from the 13 floors of Yunhai. Perhaps they don't know martial arts and are jealous of my unparalleled magnificence. Alas, only the mediocre fail to draw envy, and I can't help being so handsome. What am I to do?" On the other side of the door, Qiao Xian, who secretly had turned back to eavesdrop, almost hawked up yesterday's meal. Could someone so shameless exist? She couldn't comprehend it. Chu Buchu had sorely overestimated the state of his health. After the chaos of that night, he developed a low fever and lay insensible in bed for several days. It wasn't until the third that he showed signs of improvement. Even Jin Lian, who had suffered a serious injury that night, recovered more quickly. She couldn't help but worry he'd keel over before they set a single foot in the Khaganate. Worry not, Khatun. Chubuchu was sitting on the bed wrapped in a blanket. He had just drunk a bowl of medicine and his expression was sullen. I may be ill and my body may be frail, but there's enough life in me yet to make it to the Khaganate. Qiao Xian will accompany us as well. She's skilled in medicine, so there's nothing to worry about. He gestured for Qiao Xian to bring a scroll, which he slowly unrolled under the eyes of Jin Lian and Feng Xiao. This is a map? Jin Lian looked at the densely crammed annotations. The map looked familiar, though she couldn't tell precisely what it depicted. This is a map of the Western Khaganate, stretching from Qiaomo in the south to Sanmi Mountains in the north, and from Shuli in the west to Gaochang in the east, Chubuchu said. It's not comprehensive, but even so it's a more valuable gift for Appa Kagan than thousands of taels of gold or countless heads of livestock. The Khatun's trip will not be in vain. Jin Lian looked at him in disbelief. You want to give me this map, then have me offer borrowed flowers to Buddha? You want me to offer someone else's contributions in my name? She was a Gokturk, yet her Chinese was fluent enough to use an idiom like offer borrowed flowers to Buddha. Chubuchu's lips curved slightly. I know the Khatun strongly supports establishing a diplomatic alliance with our great Sioux. Otherwise, you wouldn't have risked your life and traveled here alone over thousands of miles. But surely there are scoundrels around Apakagan who will try to obstruct this goal. With this map in hand, will it not be that much easier for Khatun to achieve great things at Apakagan's side? Jin Lian couldn't conceal her joy. She was a woman with intelligence and vision. She well knew that quality maps were closely guarded military secrets. Such a treasure was far more precious than any gold, silver, or jewels. Feng Xiao, watching coolly from the side, saw a deeper meaning in this interaction. Chubuchu had offered the map to win over Jin Lian, yet for any Gokturks with darker intentions, this map was also a warning. Great Sioux has grasped the terrain of the Western Khaganate. We can become your ally, or we can become your enemy. This move of carrot and stick, incentive and threat, was horribly clever. Feng Xiao couldn't help but sigh once more. Why couldn't such a talented man belong to the Jijian Bureau instead? And on that note, we are done with book 1 of Peerless. Of course, we end with Feng Xiao's everything. Oh, goodness. I'm actually satisfied with the way that ended. Yeah! It is a good book. I am enjoying this. So, thus begins the most contentious road trip ever. Book 1 complete! Okay. Feng Xiao gushing over how much he likes Chupa Chu, haha. Yeah. I appreciate that it's very much because of his brain. I appreciate it when it's cerebral appreciation. D, you actually just arrived as we literally finished the book, but I'm glad that you were able to actually pop up. Yes, sapiosexual. But I'm happy that you did pop in. I'm literally like doing closing notes, but hello. If you want to, you can like the video. Thank you, D. Yeah, next week it's gonna be just normal stuff. As I said, I'm not doing anything special for St. Patrick's Day, which I believe is the Tuesday. That's Tuesday. Yeah. It's just gonna be a regular read through. The only thing is it's gonna be like the first episode. So we'll open another blind box. We'll talk about the weekend. It'll just be normal as usual. I don't have fanfic ready for this. I'm not prepared. It's I was working on con season, so I'm behind. But yep, it's Tuesday. I think the week after that it might be some funky timing because I do have a con that weekend. And I usually like to prepare on Thursdays. So it might be one of those funky Tuesday, Wednesday ones. But we will look at that and do that next week. We'll figure that out. So next week is normal. The week after that might be a little funky. But yeah. Yeah, both Truffle and Lady are right. It's based around St. Patrick. Sure, wrong day. But it's now basically a holiday where people wear green and drink a lot of Guinness, or whiskey, or just drink. So yeah, we just got hit with a snowstorm, so my week will probably be quiet. Yeah, I think I have a very rainy week to look forward to, which is okay. But yeah, have a great weekend, everyone. I'm sorry about the snowstorm, Truffle. You watch Dairy Girls. Nice. I eat corned beef and cabbage. That's what I do, and maybe have a Guinness. I'm not a super big beer drinker, but I'll usually have one on St. Patty's Day. But yeah. Oh, you cut your hair. Very nice, D. But yeah. Have a great weekend, everybody. For anyone who watched this later, I hope you enjoyed as well, and that you also have a good weekend. Oh, I'm glad you enjoyed, and I hope you feel better, Annika. It's no fun when you're sick. Yeah. Being sick is awful. I'm glad you have your winter boots, Truffle. Okay. Everyone stay warm and have a great weekend. Bye bye. See you next week for the book 2. Yeah. All right. Good night for real this time.